On March 25th, 2022, Ghostwire Tokyo was released. At least the version I'm playing on Steam. And I've just recently finished playing the game, so now it's time to ask, was it worth playing? Well, let's start with the premise. The game is supposed to be a horror game, though it's not very horror-like at all. It's far more of an action game than horror. It has like occasional horror elements, but not really enough to be called a horror game. But you play a young man who lives in Tokyo, your sister is in the hospital, and one day, as you're crossing the street, a mysterious man in a hanai mask actually seems to take over the city. He steals everybody's soul, people vanish, and nothing is left but their clothes, scattered where they last stood. And the only reason you are not vanished like this is because you were accidentally possessed by the spirit of a man called KK. And together, you two must now try to save the people of Tokyo, save your sister, and defeat the mysterious man in the hanai mask. Now, the version I played had all of the latest updates, which did include some new side quests, new collectible things, and generally just the game worked really well. I did not come across any bugs or major stuttering or issues. Now, the combat system of the game is alright. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad at all. The basic weapon you have is your long-range magic. You have 3 types, which is fire, water, and wind, each one having their own unique property. Though throughout the game, you're also going to get a bow and arrow, and you will get talisman, which will allow you to do different things like stun enemies, which is really handy. But these are in limited supply, so if you're playing on a harder difficulty, you're definitely going to want to figure out how to best utilize these. I played on normal and I did not find myself having to use these very much, so I mostly stuck to just shooting things with my spells. Now, the gameplay is split into basically 2 parts. You have the story missions or the side story missions, where you often go into areas, you have to fight some spirits, you have to read up on a little bit of lore and figure out what's going on. This is also where you're usually gonna encounter horror things. But not a lot of them. I think I counted 3 jump scares through the entire game. And the main spooky things happened in 2 optional side quests. Now, story-wise, I actually found the side quests to be more interesting than the main story. The main story is good, but the side quests are these little interesting pockets of lore, which I had a lot of fun playing through. Especially the school side quest, which was added post-release, which I found really fun and actually to be the scariest part of the game. Now, outside of questing, you can travel around the city. At first, the city is closed off with this kind of fog, which you have to slowly open up. To get rid of the fog, you have to go to these temple gates, and you cleanse them, which opens up the area, but also makes the temple gate a fast travel point. Which is really handy, because the city does get kind of big. And now Tokyo in this game looks absolutely amazing. I have never been there, but I have a friend who has been there, and he says it looks really close to the real thing. And walking through the city is quite unique, as there's nobody there. But all around you can see scattered clothes of the people who used to be there just a few hours ago. And the city is full of optional collectible things. My favorite were these cat vendors who want you to find collectibles for them. And when you talk to them, you can actually mark on your map where the collectibles are, so you don't have to go just searching the city without knowing where things are. Though, of course, before you meet the cat, you can still find the items. And when you come across an item a cat wants, you will hear a little meow in your headphones, which is quite handy, so you know there is something here you should collect. And when you turn it into the cat, it actually shows up in their stall, which is very cute, and sometimes they even wear the items or are interacting with them. And it's just a fun little thing to do. Other things you're going to be doing around the city is you're going to be trying to save the souls of the people who are, who used to own the clothes that are all over the place. You are finding the different yokai around the city. There's a good variety and it can be very fun to find them. You can feed the dogs of the city who are going to give you coins. You can shop for handy items. You can find reports that KK wrote about different ghost huntings in the past. And even later on, if you have the side content, you can find these haunted photos and you have to try to find the spot they were taken in and match it up so you can cleanse the area and therefore destroy the photo. I found this to be actually my favorite part of the game. It was something really chill about just having YouTube on my second screen or listening to music as I just wandered around the city collecting things. And as you are collecting things and fighting, you also build up your character. As you do have 3 talent trees you can actually fill out. 2 of them are more combat related, and 1 is traverse related, which I found to be a lot of fun because you get the ability to kind of float around. So you start just floating around the city, and that is so much fun. It is a quick way to traverse. You get to see the city from a very unique angle, and it was just really enjoyable. I absolutely loved this part of the game. I actually ended up gathering up most of the collectible things. I found everything for the cats. I found all the spirits, and I finished all the photos, though I did need some help with the photos eventually, because even though the photos, some of them have like really distinct areas, and I could figure out kind of where they're from, some of the times the area felt kind of vague, and I couldn't quite figure out where it was, so I had to get a little bit of help from the internet. One thing that managed to always kind of freak me out as I played through the city is the ghost parade. So as you are traversing through the city, at the same time, a ghost parade is traversing through the city. As they get close to you, the lights around you shut off, a deep fog sets in, and you're gonna hear music because they're holding these bells, they're playing something. And you will see them in the distance, and you do not want to get close to them because if they get close to you, they will fight you. And while they weren't like super scary, they always managed to disturb me a little bit, which I found really fun. And it was a nice thing to be just doing something and then the lights go off and you know you're gonna have to move, you're gonna be in trouble. And it really just added a fun challenge to traversing the city. Of course, as well as you're traversing the city, there are plenty of like these demon-like beings there. Each type actually has lore around them, which I thought was really fun. There are different types, which you want to fight in different ways, and that was quite enjoyable. But you can also sometimes just kind of avoid them. The city is also full of cats and dogs, so if you're stressed out, you can always go pet them, which is always quite nice, or feed the dog to get some money. It is very lovely. But generally, I found the game to be less scary and more sad. The story is bittersweet, and so a lot of the side quests. And walking around the city, they don't rely on gore or jump scares to like scare you, but just walking around the city, seeing all the clothes laying around and knowing these were the clothes of people. And sometimes you will find messages these people were writing on their phone, or you can see clothes set up in different places, telling you a little bit of a story about the people who were there. And it gives the game sort of a melancholic vibe, which I really enjoyed. It reminded me of a children's story I used to hear in Iceland when I was a kid about a boy who was alone in the world. And I remember I always wanted to try that. And in this game, you kind of get to try it. And it's less fun and more just eerie. Because you know there should be people everywhere. There should be the sounds of the city, the sounds of people talking, moving. And there's nothing. And while many times it's super peaceful and nice, especially in side quests where you go into houses and you see the clothing of children, you see their room and you know they're not there anymore and you don't quite know if they're gonna come back or not. Now I'm gonna go into spoiler territory. I'm gonna talk about the side quests and the main story. So if you don't want to hear any major spoilers, check the description. I have chapters so you can jump to the conclusion part of the video. For now, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Talking about the main story, I found it to be very satisfying. The ending was bittersweet, but it felt earned. I was both happy and sad because I found it hard to say goodbye to KK. I found it hard to say goodbye to my sister. But it was also really satisfying to see your sister off to the afterlife, to meet your parents again, and for your person to give the promise of living a healthy and good life before they pass to the other side. I did all of the Rinko side quests, and it was nice seeing her find some peace in the end, and at the same time, I was devastated to see where she ended up. I think when I sent the spirit on and then saw her clothes, where she had been sitting, it really hit me hard. It made me remember like these were people. She was here. This is where she died. I also quite enjoyed Ed, even though I never got to meet him. I quite enjoyed all his little messages he left for me as I gathered up the different souls of the city and also through the Rinko quest line. Now, the main story was wonderful. I loved going through it, getting to know the people, and just how disturbing the story was, especially with the man in the Hanai mask, how he had actually taken the bodies of both KK and his family and is using them to fight you, which was just disturbing as hell and really tragic. But while the story was good, I absolutely adored the side quests. Obviously, the side quests were different from one another. Some of them were really long, some of them were really short. I found them to be always quite enjoyable. I liked the hoarder house side quest. I also really liked the side quest where you had the friendly little yokai, like girl ghost, in the houses, and you just had to feed them. That was really sweet. I loved going into people's houses, going into the bathhouse, and going into the school, because as somebody who lived in like the Nordic countries of Europe, the architecture is very foreign to me and still familiar. It was really pleasant to just get to walk around. Now, my absolutely favorite side quest was the school though. It was added after release, but oh my gosh, I loved it. I think part of it is also I work as a teacher, even though I work with like younger children than were in like that side quest. It's still, school has always felt like a safe place and still kind of a spooky place to me. And when I show up in the morning, the school is empty because I tend to show up at work quite early. I like the moment before anyone is there so I can prepare my day, and it allows me to leave a little bit earlier in the afternoon. But so walking through the school felt so familiar and nice. And then the anatomy figure showed up, and I have not been so scared in a long time. Gosh, that thing following you around was the worst. It's a very weeping angel-like enemy. So when you look at it, it doesn't move. But when you look away, it moves, and it moves fast. Like, gosh, it moves fast. And sometimes when you turn around, you see it still moving. And I like that because it showed like it has animations and it is moving and you hear it moving and it just moves so fast, and it freaked me out so bad. Especially when you realize if I close a door, even though there's a window on the door and I'm looking at it, it doesn't care anymore. It doesn't detect that I am in line of sight of it, so it just beats its way through the door, and it freaked me out, and I adored it. The whole school side quest was just amazing. I think this is a game that was just so much fun to play. The story was definitely worth it. So, into conclusions, I found the game to be surprisingly good. I had seen it on Steam several times before, and it just never grabbed me. There was nothing about it that made me go like, oh, I want to play this game. It just did not look like something I would enjoy. Thankfully, a good friend of mine actually gifted me the game, which caused me to try it. And even after he gifted it to me, I was not sure if I wanted to play it, and I went into it really skeptical. I was almost pretty sure I would not enjoy this game and it would not be for me. But I really did enjoy it, and I think I will probably play it again sometimes in the future, maybe in a few years when I want to go revisit Tokyo like this. So would I recommend it? Yes. It is really good. It is a wonderful game to play through, especially if you're interested in Japan and Japanese culture, and especially like their yokai and ghosts and stuff like that. This is an excellent game to play through. It is also a handy game for those who kind of want to dip their toes into horror without it being too much horror, because this is far more like an action-oriented game than horror, but it has its horror moments, and it definitely has like a spooky atmosphere at times, but it does not use like too much jump scares or gore, which is very handy. So it is a good accessible game for those who want a little bit of horror, but like not a lot of it, just a tiny taste. And if you just like interesting stories, it is a fun game to play. So do I recommend it? Yes, I highly recommend it. I think you should play it. Take a look at it. It looks wonderful. It plays wonderful. It has really interesting stories and lore in it. And I think it's something you should put on your list. And especially if you get it on discount, it's worth it just to try out like the experience of being in a city without any people. It is very unique and fun. So that is my conclusion. It was worth playing. You should play it. Now tell me, is there any game you would recommend me playing? Tell me about it in the comments or join my Discord where we talk about video games and Final Fantasy, and you're also notified whenever I'm streaming. And if you want to be absolutely amazing, do all the good YouTube stuff is really going to help me out, and it always makes me very happy when I get like thumbs up or shares or just anybody watching my videos. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.